David Hawthorne was a man who lived his life attuned to the steady cadence of normalcy. A devoted husband and father of two, he woke early each morning to commute to an unremarkable job as an accountant, bringing stability and structure to the lives of his family. His life was framed by the predictable things: paying the bills, helping with the kids' homework, and planning the occasional vacation. He thrived in the familiarity of this routine, convinced that the trust he had built with his wife, Emily, was unshakable. But beneath the mundane surface, the tension was bubbling. The ignorance was blissful. Emily had grown restless, her smile fading into a grim line that echoed the whispers of discontent. David tried to dismiss it, attributing her distance to midlife crises or the wear and tear of parenthood. He didn't suspect what was truly happening behind the smiling facade of their lives. When she came home late, reeking of a different perfume that clashed harshly with the scent he had come to associate with her, he brushed off the signs. He was still the man who believed in loyalty, who respected their shared vows. One cool autumn evening, everything shattered. David had decided to surprise Emily with a night out. He pictured her radiant smile, lighting up at the thought, just as she did in the early years of their marriage. But as he drove toward the upscale restaurant where they had met for their first date, a voice nagged at him. Something felt wrong, but he shoved the feeling aside. It was supposed to be a nice night, a chance to reconnect. Arriving early, David found himself with extra time to kill. He pulled up the menu on his phone, scrolling through the items, when his attention was caught by a familiar sight across the street, a hotel he had passed many times. The glaring neon sign advertised a cocktail happy hour, and he chuckled, remembering the late nights with friends when they would stop by after work. For reasons he couldn't articulate, he felt an impulse to check it out just that evening. It was an ember of curiosity that led him into that hotel lobby. What he saw through a glass door turned his world upside down. There, seated at a table, was Emily, her laughter ringing through the air like a siren's call. But she wasn't alone. Leaning toward her, his ease and confident smile unmistakable, was Andrew, David's closest friend. The way Emily leaned into his touch, how they exchanged lingering glances, there was no denying the intimacy woven into each silent exchange. David's heart raced. A hot rush of adrenaline collided with disbelief. His pulse pounded in his ears as he instinctively grabbed for his phone, snapping a picture, desperate for proof that this surreal nightmare was real. The distant chatter of the patrons faded away, replaced by the roaring silence in his mind. The two people he had trusted most were engaging in a betrayal that twisted the knife deeper with each shared laugh between them. He stood frozen in the doorway, a statue made of disbelief, anger, and heartbreak. Yet he could not linger. Instead, David walked away, bearing the devastation that threatened to consume him. Ready for war in the world of marital chaos he suddenly found himself in. As he drove home, rage turned swiftly to a cold determination. He would not allow them to keep this cycle going unchecked. What followed would be a meticulous takedown that left nothing standing in the wake of their betrayal. When David confronted Emily later that evening, the reality of years of trust washed away in an instant. He stood firm, looking her dead in the eye as he handed over the photograph, silent accusation burning in the space between them. "I want the truth," he demanded, the gravity of his tone striking like thunder. Her emotional armor fell instantly, shimmering defenses shattering against his relentless gaze. David watched as denial transformed into guilt, coloring her cheeks red before washing them pale. "I'm leaving you for Andrew," she whispered, and with those words, she slapped the last bit of loyalty from him like dust from an old book. The admission struck with the force of a freight train, and something fundamentally shifted within him. He would not fall apart. He would rise. The old David had vanished in that hotel lobby, and the new man was hungry for justice. The betrayal would not simply hang over him, it would fuel the fire of his revenge. It started small, blocking their credit cards, cutting ties financially and emotionally. David uncovered months' worth of purchases from places he never frequented, and with each revelation, he felt a rush of vindication. The chaos that Emily had invited into their lives prompted him to act decisively. He researched legal precedents daily, seeking counsel on how to engage Andrew and Emily in a battle for restitution. His rage brimmed with clarity. It was no longer about loyalty, but the obliteration of their shared reality. As the divorce proceedings loomed closer, David scoured through evidence, meticulously assembling documentation, the exchanged texts, the insidious interactions captured in the screenshots. It wasn't revenge he was after, it was survival. He was taking their betrayal and turning it into his triumph. Weeks passed, and Emily's attempts to win back his affection were met with cold indifference. She had crossed the line, and he would not allow kindness to interfere with the obliteration of her dreams. For every ounce of regret she expressed, David smiled harder, feeding off her guilt, savoring the power he now wielded. The facade of her life began to fracture, her circle of friends turning their backs as the truth began to seep out like poison. Having taken the first step in laying bare the disarray that had become their lives, he made sure to invite his colleagues to witness the unraveling of Emily's charade. No longer would he be the punchline, but the dagger missed Emily's heart for now. His sights were aimed directly at Andrew. The man who had betrayed him stood high in his social circle, and David reveled in the thought of stripping him of that safety. At the next company gathering, on the evening of Emily's public confession, David cornered Andrew in front of their colleagues. The once beloved companion transformed before their eyes as David peeled back the layers of deceit intertwined between their everyday laughter. "I have something to say," he announced loudly, capturing every wary ear nearby. Silence enveloped them. Time slowed, as if the world held its breath. Internally, David drank in the moment's weight. He wielded words like weapons, slicing through Andrew's facade with each syllable that fell from his lips. Here, stripped bare of pretense, in front of those who exalted Andrew, David revealed the illicit affair without flinching. The shocked gasps rippled through the crowd. Andrew's face turned pale as realization crashed over him. David's voice rang through the silence, the bitter sweetness of retribution invigorating his spirit as Andrew stammered, unable to respond. "Your turn to face the music, Andrew," David taunted, enjoying the camaraderie of the crowd, turning against the man who had once been his trusted confidant. This was his moment. Andrew begged David to back down, desperation threading through his pleas, yet the crowd was unforgiving. David felt powerful, unbreakable, as Andrew crumbled under the weight of shame and deception. The autumn wind whipped past him as he stepped outside afterward. The taste of triumph hung heavily in the air as he replayed the moment over and over. David was no longer a passive participant in his life. He relished the powerful strides he took to reclaim his dignity. The months following Emily's public humiliation flew by, yet each day poured cement over the wreckage she had created. David had methodically transformed himself into a powerful force, one that exuded control. Each positive affirmation he had whispered to his reflection in the mirror now resonated more profoundly. He was no longer a victim. He was the architect of his own resurrection. Emily had descended into irrelevance, a specter of the woman he had once known. Her financial stability evaporated the moment David initiated divorce proceedings. The house they had built together, a site of dreams and laughter, had become a battleground. He methodically dismantled everything she held dear, leveraging the legal system against her. David fought tooth and nail, armed with the photographs, texts, and witness accounts that chronicled the extent of her betrayal. The courtroom became his fortress, the jury his audience. With each session, he reveled in recounting the details of their betrayal, bringing witnesses who corroborated his claims. His colleagues, now allies, exposed the truths Emily had hoped to bury. The once gilded accolades she flaunted in their social circles became chains that shackled her reputation. David thrived as her past came to light, an eager audience lingering on the edges of every scandal. With Andrew's company imploding as well, David could feel the ripple effects of his actions, The scandal ran deeper, beyond just the divorce. It tainted both of their lives irrevocably. As Andrew's dreams collapsed, David felt a grim satisfaction in watching the fallout. The man who had played a pivotal role in betraying David learned that trust was a fragile currency, easily spent and fraught with peril. As the court date approached, David sharpened his strategy further. He had spent sleepless nights tirelessly assessing the consequence of each financial move Emily had made. She was drowning beneath debts incurred, borrowing money from friends who now turned their backs, and cringing as her children watched her status dissolve within their social circle. David's hard-won financial independence was his ultimate weapon, and he wielded it without remorse. With the divorce finally set in motion, feelings of vindication fueled his pursuit of justice. Yet, in the quiet moments before sleep, shadows crept into his thoughts. He questioned if he could truly reconcile the man he had become. Revenge, he realized, eclipsed the love once shared between him and Emily, turning camaraderie into cruel contempt. Each glimpse of his children invoked a sense of mourning for the family he had cherished. They didn't deserve this agony. Then came a phone call that shattered his contemplation. While in the middle of preparing his case, David received a desperate message from Emily that rattled him to the core. She begged for a chance to talk, her words laced with desperation. "Please, David, just for a moment. I need to explain myself, face to face." The very thought ignited the simmering rage bubbling within him. Yet he found his heart racing at the prospect. There was a strength in confronting the truth. The following afternoon, David met her at a small cafe where they had celebrated anniversaries and milestones. This time, the familiar warmth felt cold, skating across the surface of their exchanged glances. "I know you hate me," Emily started, her voice trembling, "but I need you to understand. This isn't just about us." David leaned back in his chair, arms crossed over his chest. "Then what is it about, Emily? You tore our family apart without a second thought. What could possibly justify your betrayal?" The composure on her face crumbled, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I felt trapped, like I was living someone else's dream. Andrew made me feel alive. I thought maybe we could rebuild it," she stammered, her voice cracking. "I see it now, everything is ruined. I wish things were different." A dry chuckle escaped David's lips, the bitterness coating his words. "You wish things were different?" The absurdity of her statement fueled the fire inside him. "Do you realize how many lives you've wrecked?" But even as he hurled words laden with fury, he saw the faint glimmer of guilt in her eyes. Beneath the facade of indifference, David grappled with the remnants of his own heart. How could someone he had once loved so profoundly act with such little care? "David, it was never about you," Emily pressed, desperation edging her tone. "I was the one who made the choices. Watching you fight back has opened my eyes. I feared bringing the kids into this, but maybe they need to witness strength instead of weakness. Maybe they need to see how to fight for what matters." For a fleeting moment, he studied her, recognizing the woman he had fallen for many years ago. But the warmth faded quickly, enveloped by the reality of the situation. "Emily, you broke our family," he replied stoically. "And you didn't just lose me. You lost our kids. They see you for what you are now." In that moment, he understood there could be no reconciliation. No matter how pleading her words became, she had crossed the point of no return, and he would remember this converging of their paths as the nail in their coffin. No entry back, only dismissal awaited her. "I won't forgive you," he added. "Not today, not ever." With one last look, he stood up, the weight of finality present in his posture. David walked away, each step further strengthening his resolve. He had reclaimed his self-respect and moved forward. Back in the safety of his home, the loud ring of the phone shattered the quietude. It was Andrew, not for reconciliation, but to salvage what little remained of his own reputation. With each inquiry, David felt the delicious thrill of control run through his veins. "David, please. I need to explain the circumstances." "Andrew," he cut in. The harshness of his voice stopped Andrew in his tracks. "You and Emily are utterly delusional if you think you can ever salvage this." "Think of what you're doing to our families," Andrew pleaded. "That train has long left the station," David shot back, conviction lacing his words. "If you wanted to keep your family intact, perhaps you shouldn't have played the harbinger of destruction." Their conversation devolved into silent despair, each moment forging their fates further apart until it hung with a heavy tension. David had closed the final chapter between them, gathering his resolve for what awaited in the courtroom. Nothing could sway him now. Neither betrayal nor childhood memories would dictate the boundaries of his newfound power. David Hawthorne would emerge victorious, not just as a survivor, but as the architect of his own personality reborn, rising like a phoenix, where once there lived innocence naively blinded by trust. As his life began a new chapter, victory tasted bittersweet, yet it was a victory laden with lessons. No longer would he let himself be vulnerable. He had tasted the sharp blade of betrayal and burned it into his psyche. There would be no turning back. The past belonged to those who dimmed the light. He had chosen to embrace the vivid brightness of his own potential. The courtroom felt like a theater where lives were laid bare, each moment dripping with tension far deeper than the proceedings demanded. As David approached the front, he could hear the muffled buzz of whispers among the spectators, many of whom were his colleagues, friends who had subtly distanced themselves from Emily and Andrew over the months. Today, he wouldn't simply recount his story. He would become the embodiment of justice, an executioner of the betrayals that had sliced through his life like a sharp knife. Emily sat across the room, fidgeting with her hair and avoiding eye contact with those in attendance. David watched her closely, recognizing the traces of guilt smeared across her face. But he drew strength from the resurgence of his own heart. This was not about revenge. It was about shedding light on the truth that had festered in the dark too long. And for Emily and Andrew, the light would scorch. The judge entered, a figure of authority as they took their seat, and the room settled into tense silence. The air was thick, thickened with anticipation as David rose to present his case. Every step toward the stand echoed powerfully beneath the stark fluorescent lights, reverberating like the toll of an ominous bell, heralding his transformation. He began recounting the betrayal with a calm that belied the storm of passion surging beneath his composed facade. "In October, I discovered my wife had betrayed me with my best friend," he stated, his voice unwavering, the words chosen carefully to weave an unbreakable thread of truth. As he shared the details, the late nights, the telltale signs, he watched Emily's face contort into a mix of shame and anger. The lawyer sitting across represented Emily with a feeble grasp of the nuances and emotional upheaval, determined to paint David as the angry spouse. Her attempts to twist the narrative fell flat as David recounted the many times he had supported her, lavished affection, and built their home into a sanctuary. Each heartfelt memory lit him on fire, not with nostalgia, but with the righteous fury he had cultivated during his long nights of sleeplessness. When Emily's lawyer attempted to deflect blame, casting David's own investments in work and dedication to his career as neglect, David countered deftly. "I worked hard to provide for my family," he challenged, holding steady eye contact with the jury. "But I didn't realize it wasn't enough for my wife. I invested in our family, while she chose to invest in betrayal." Slowly, piece by piece, he observed as the jury shifted uncomfortably, grappling with the unfolding truths. He could see the doubt settle in, not on him, but on Emily's corner. The whispers turned into hushed murmurs, the tide of social perception shifting in David's favor, and with it a sense of control. Empowered by each nod of understanding he saw on the jury's faces, the wind swelled beneath his wings. The final blow came when he opened the text messages he had compiled, displaying images on the projector. The intimate exchanges illuminated phrases dripping with desire, the unmistakable markers of infidelity. each word scything through any lingering loyalty that might have been summoned. The courtroom gasped, and David felt vindicated. "Before this started, I was a man willing to bend over backward for my family," he said, his intensity building. "Now, I've learned the hard way that there are people who drown in their own misery and attempt to take you beneath the surface with them. I refuse to sink." Sitting near the front row, he noticed Andrew squirm visibly, his face flushing as he saw his involvement laid bare for the world to see. The humiliation painted a vivid picture, one where he'd been knocked down a peg and thrust into the spotlight as the disgraced man who had severed bonds of loyalty for sex and a fleeting thrill. In his closing statements, David stood tall, words dripping with resolve. "And that is why I stand here today, Your Honor, to ask that the court acknowledges the patterns of manipulation, deceit, and betrayal that have encroached upon my life. I want full custody of our children, not just for my sake, but for their future, away from those who would harm them." With that, he left the stand, the gravity of his statement hanging in the air like a specter of finality. The jury held their determination tightly, and he could sense it. The winds had shifted. The session concluded, and as the courtroom erupted in a cacophony of discussions, David felt a rush of adrenaline course through him. He'd fought valiantly, not against just Emily and Andrew, but against the disbelief that had thrived in shadows, the bitterness of betrayal, the weariness of loss. As the long wait for deliberation hung over him like a heavy pall, he thought about the journey it had taken, from the moments of grief to the empowering fire that had ignited within, cutting ties with the home he had once known, laying every ghost to rest with confrontation. As friends congratulated him informally in the hall, their murmurs filled him with hope. That evening, as David left the courthouse, he took a deep breath, letting the crisp air fill his lungs, invigorating him with renewed vigor. He had wheeled through a storm and emerged not only intact, but emboldened. The road ahead would not be smooth, rehabilitating his life as a single parent, rebuilding friendships, and forging a future he had almost lost. Days turned into weeks as he awaited the court's decision. Daily routines became threads woven into the fabric of his reawakening. He dedicated time to his children, filling their lives with laughter and joy, helping them cope with the shifting tides of their reality. He wanted them to feel love again, not to discover a bitter legacy of resentment lingering between him and their mother. Then came the day David had both anticipated and dreaded, the verdict. A full day spent in the courthouse waiting area, the moments stretched like elastic bands on the verge of snapping. When they finally called him in, he held his breath, his heart pounding like war drums. His children would be the heartbeat of his existence from this moment on. In the courtroom, the judge pronounced their decision, and time dropped away entirely, replaced by the rush of exhilaration coursing through David's veins. The court rules in favor of Mr. Hawthorne for sole custody of the children and grants an equitable distribution of assets. The defendant's actions have left an indelible mark upon this family and will influence all decisions moving forward. It was a clean blow, resonating with thunderous echoes of resolve. No more games, no more manipulation for leverage. The crowd erupted. Friends high-fived him, excitement mingling with disbelief as applause erupted among the gathered audience. David stood a moment longer, allowing the magnitude of this moment to wash over him. No sense of remorse, no feeling of loss attached. It was justice finally restored. Andrew staggered back, the weight of public shame settling hard upon his shoulders. Emily clung to her lawyer, desperation emanating from her like a suffocating fog. It was all too sweet. He had dismantled their worlds with relentless strength, and in that chilly courtroom, the chains of betrayal were shattered completely, leaving David Hawthorne reborn. He turned to his children, beaming with pride. They were his true legacy now. As he exited the building, the world felt wide open, possibilities stretching before him like a sunlit horizon. He had not only survived, the little man had emerged as a giant, one who stood unwavering against the elite and their deceitful games. No mercy would linger in his heart, only the fire of rebirth. In this new chapter, days would come filled with triumph, laughter, and the unyielding bond of family. There would be no return to the past. Ghosts might linger, but those memories would be reframed, transformed into lessons that had statistically enriched his resolve. From now on, David was determined never to feel powerless again. His heart had bled dry of the pain, the narratives that had once colored his life, and from those ashes, he would forge a path filled with hope and redemption. Fighting for something greater, the life and the love he had almost lost. He would reclaim everything with a fiery spirit guiding him, steadfast and unyielding. He would weave a legacy that celebrated strength, not victimhood. And never again would he let trust become a weapon used against him. The days following the verdict felt surreal. David's new reality was suffused with the warmth of possibilities and the buoyancy of freedom. He had reclaimed his life, and his children, Jenna and Ryan, stirred new purpose within him. Every moment spent together became a cherished memory, a delightful antidote to the chaos of the past. They filled their home with laughter, engaging in baking experiments that usually resulted in more flour on their faces than actual treats, and movie marathon nights where they huddled under blankets, munching popcorn and shouting at the screen. But despite the light, the darkness of David's past loomed, casting shadows over their new beginning. The echoes of betrayal didn't vanish overnight. They lingered, whispering their way into quiet moments. In the stillness, he grappled with the emotional weight of what had transpired. The scars of infidelity and betrayal had not just changed his life, they had evolved his very being. Every time Jenna asked why her mother wasn't around, David felt the knots tighten in his stomach, a physical reminder of the guilt he bore, echoes of a love lost, a friendship shattered. He answered her gently, explaining simply, "Mom is working on becoming a better person, sweetheart," keeping her childhood innocence intact while shielding her from bitterness. He understood the fine line between honesty and delicacy as he navigated these turbulent waters of childhood grief. Although the children had the chance to see Emily, the visits always felt tinged with an unspoken tension, a faint aura of what was left unsaid hanging over them. David feared for their morale, hoping they wouldn't internalize their mother's shortcomings or the new silence that replaced the comfort of their past family life. In those moments, he resolved to keep their hearts filled with positivity, striving to remain their pillar of strength. As winter crept into spring, David decided to embrace the fresh start. He enrolled Jenna and Ryan in local sports, prompting them to engage in activities that fostered teamwork and camaraderie. He even took on coaching duties for their soccer team, relishing the chance to be actively involved in their interests, to shape their experiences through shared victories and challenges. Evenings became a sacred time. After each practice, they would gather for storytelling. David spun fantastical tales, imbued with adventures about bravery and the triumph of good over evil, drawing inspiration from the present while stitching it to the narratives of resilience and courage. The stories became a way not only to entertain, but also to teach life lessons through moral dilemmas and empathetic understanding. The flickering lights of their living room glowed as they bonded over these adventures, offering warmth against the chill cast by the realities outside their door. During one of these sessions, Ryan stared at David, his small brow furrowed in concentration. "Dad, do you think Mom is going to come back, like, for good?" His voice cracked at the end, revealing the vulnerability lurking beneath his tough facade. David paused, the weight of the moment heavy on his chest. "Buddy, it's okay to miss her. It's normal," he soothed, squeezing his son's shoulder gently. "But sometimes people don't always choose what's best for the family." What's important is that we support each other and stay a team. Ryan nodded, visibly reassured, and for David, this confirmation felt monumental. He was helping his children process their emotions, nurturing their spirits amidst uncertainty. They were growing into resilient beings in their own right, bolstered by the connection between them. However, the looming specter of Emily's transgressions hung in the air like a harsh winter. The court had mandated interaction in limited phases, albeit regulated, to ease the disruption in the children's lives. Yet each meeting felt more complex than the last. Emily had begun calling from time to time, asserting her desire to rectify her mistakes, to be there for the children. But her advances looped around deceit, measured by convenience rather than genuine intention, and he found it increasingly difficult to navigate. He watched as the children's hesitations morphed into ambivalence, their excitement dwindling like the dying embers of a once bright flame. On one such visit, David observed Jenna struggling with the mixed emotions she and Ryan confronted, her eyes darting from her mother's familiar face to David's rigid stance at the corner of the room. "Mom, can we go for ice cream afterward?" she had asked, her bright smile radiating glimmers of hope. "Of course, sweetie," Emily replied, leaning across the table, fingers brushing Jenna's. But David saw the tension in his daughter's eyes transform into uncertainty. Instinctively, he stepped in. "But remember, sweetie, we have plans the next day," he interjected gently, creating a buffer between them without directly intervening. "We can do ice cream after soccer practice next week, right?" Jenna nodded, her smile wavering, but the innocence in her eyes flickering with gratitude as uncertainty ebbed slightly. David felt a rush of relief. He was easing the burden, even if just a little. Emily recoiled visibly, the flicker of annoyance flashing across her features. Beneath the surface tensions, she resented that he had a hand in the decisions, yet David was unwavering. He had fought too hard to regain control over their lives. As the months rolled on, it became evident that Emily's penance lacked sincerity. She struggled to maintain a life of locality. Her attempts to win back David's affection fizzled quickly, reduced to ineffective gestures that left him feeling even more resolute in his decision to limit her influence on the children. That summer, a scene unfolded that etched itself into David's memory forever. The children were at soccer practice, and he had ignited the enthusiasm of the other parents to organize a local tournament. Sweet memories in the making. Just as he was collecting the registration forms, he spotted Emily hovering near the edge of the field, her eyes scanning the activity nervously. He felt the tension spike in that moment. She approached, a mixture of hesitance and determination etched across her features. "David, can we talk?" The request was tentative, but he could hear the urgency hanging in the air between them. "What's this about, Emily? It's not good for the kids to see you here too often," he replied, voice steady and eyes unwavering. She hesitated, visibly constraining emotions erratic and raging beneath her outward calm. "I want to be involved in their lives. I've changed. I'm better." Her voice rose, laced with desperation. "Can't you see that?" "They need me." David regarded her skeptically. "You need them. That's not the same thing." The words cut sharp, and in the tension of exchanged glances, David felt the remnants of their connection hang suspended in the air. He had long since abandoned the notion of rekindling their past. The remnants were far too pungent. And yet, he sensed the core desperation behind her request. "David, I'm begging you. I've sought therapy. I'm trying to do better. I want them to know their mother, even if it means I have to earn it back." There it was, an admission laced with vulnerability. David wanted to melt, to believe in her claims, but reason held him fast. "You've hurt them too much, and frankly, yourself. Talk is easy. Actions take work." Just as he finished speaking, he noticed Jenna and Ryan sprinting toward them, laughter spilling beyond the grass like fountain water, their joy spilling over like unfiltered sunlight. The rawness of their glee pushed back against the heavy atmosphere simmering between David and Emily. "Mom, we won!" Jenna exclaimed, her excitement lighting the tension with an infectious glow as she launched herself into Emily's arms. David felt a pang in his chest, watching the scene unfold. This was a slice of what he feared could expose the cracks. Distracted affection just beyond reach. But before he could intervene, Ryan jumped in, trumpeting, "Yeah! Dad organized the tournament! We scored 3 goals each." The pride in David's stance spurred their newfound camaraderie. But even as joy sparked, his gut churned. As the kids celebrated, he internally battled with what kind of role Emily truly deserved in their lives. The truth hung precariously over the scene. He knew that wounds didn't just repair themselves with mere words, or even the effort of mere cries for help. As they celebrated, he couldn't shake the thought that the chance for an authentic restoration remained perilously figurative. In the subsequent weeks, as soccer practice turned to summer barbecue outings, David balanced the kids' joy against his growing wariness regarding Emily's intentions. He leveraged openness, often speaking with Jenna and Ryan about feelings, ensuring they felt empowered to share fears and desires, keeping Mom's mingling part of their lives healthy but guarded. Gradually, the intention behind their actions became clearer. David's vigilance kept Emily on the periphery, but he sensed he had built a fort against emotional onslaught. Watching Jenna and Ryan embrace their blossoming childhood, he felt like a protective lion, navigating the complexities with care, ensuring their fortress remained intact against the world's unpredictable storms. As summer faded to autumn, David realized resilience burgeoned in his children. Each small decision they made, every triumph shared, became tributaries, flowing into their confidence. They were fortifying the foundation of their lives anew, anchored in cycles of nurturing that encompassed not just the presence of a father, but their own reflections entering a world unencumbered by footprints left of regret. And as the crisp leaves fell from trees, David couldn't help but appreciate the grounding sentiment, chasing shadows of the past away. They were moving forward, birds in flight, actively iterating through time with triumph. And he was there, vigilant, unwavering, nurturing a love that would anchor foundational memories in brightness instead of darkness. For David, the challenge of being both a father and a protector only deepened his resolve. The life he was fostering would not only speak of survival, it would embody the strength of resilience, an enduring narrative designed to withstand the rattling calls of betrayal echoing outside, where Emily still lingered, a constant reminder, but not a formidable threat. David had risen through the ashes of his trials, emerging a man reborn, a father whose love knew no bounds. Now the focus was on building a future where his children thrived, and he was eager to embrace the journey ahead. The lingering memories of betrayal would not define their lives, and he was determined to guide them through a life steeped in genuine fulfillment, hope, and unconditional love, an heirloom far more valuable than anything else. And under that sunlit sky, he let unwelcome ghosts disperse into the past. The future beckoned brightly as they joyously stepped forward into a new chapter. As the seasons continued to change, David's life settled into a new rhythm, each day a testament to growth and resilience. He found comfort in the routine they were building as a family, redistributing the pieces of a shattered past into a mosaic of joy and connection. Each challenge he had faced had only fortified his resolve to create a nurturing environment for Jenna and Ryan. Soccer would eventually glide into football season, and with it, David found himself increasingly involved in community activities. He met other parents who shared his commitment to their children's well-being, fostering friendships that extended beyond the soccer field. Together, they organized charity events, rallying support for local schools and youth programs, creating a web of mutual support and camaraderie. It felt vibrant, alive, a stark contrast to the shadows that had haunted his past. Despite moving forward, the specter of Emily's presence lingered. While her visits to see the kids were manageable and often arranged under carefully monitored circumstances, David remained acutely aware of the emotional currents that ebbed and flowed during these encounters. Each time she came around, he felt the old wounds reopen, not by her presence alone, but by the hesitation lurking in his children's eyes. Jenna and Ryan oscillated between warmth and uncertainty during their interactions with their mother, and it left David with a mixture of concern and the need to navigate the complexities of their shared history. One sunny Saturday afternoon, David organized a backyard barbecue for the kids and a few families from the neighborhood. The air hummed with laughter, the tantalizing smell of grilled burgers wafting through the yard. It was a simple gathering aimed at fostering connection, and as he whipped up potato salad with Jenna, David completely lost himself in the moment. He felt a sense of normalcy that had once seemed like a distant dream. He glanced toward the backyard where Ryan showed off his soccer tricks to a captivated audience of peers, his laughter infectious as it carried over the crisp autumn breeze. A sense of parental pride swelled within David, realizing that he had successfully shielded his children from the tumult that had threatened to engulf them not long ago. Moments like these were his radar, guiding him toward an unshakable core, a lighthouse amidst turbulent waves. Eventually, as twilight beckoned, he spotted Emily approaching from a distance, her silhouette framed by the gentle glow of the evening sun. She hesitated at the edge of their yard, a different aura surrounding her. Concern raced through him, but was quickly quelled when he noticed Jenna vault toward her mother, a smile illuminating her face. "Mom, you made it!" Jenna squealed, her joy encapsulated in the innocence of a child who craved connection. David felt a bittersweet pang as he watched the two embrace, apprehension threading through his mind. Empathy warred with anger. He wanted his children to forge their own relationship with Emily, steering clear of his own sentiments. Yet the feelings were complicated, and the balance between support and defense complicated his resolve. "Hey, sweetie, I couldn't miss the fun," Emily answered, her voice cheery as she nestled into Jenna's side. But David could sense an undercurrent of tension within her words, as if she was straining to maintain her composure. Shifting his focus back to the grill, he fortified his resolve to remain distant yet supportive, enforcing boundaries even as he wanted to protect his children from sensing his inner turmoil. As the night progressed, David remained more than just an observer. He was a conduit for joy, blending in with the sounds of laughter, ensuring Ryan and his friends were engrossed in a game of tag that sprawled across the yard. But every time he glanced back at Jenna and Emily, it forced him to contend with the counterbalance of affection and caution. An hour into the gathering, David noticed Emily leaning toward Jenna, likely coaxing her into sharing secrets as they giggled, their interchange enveloped by nostalgia tinged with fragility. It was tough to ignore how his daughter seemed eager to engage with her mother, lost in the joyous, dreamy haze their shared laughter created. However, the moment was disrupted when another mom, Cassie, casually approached David with a knowing smile lining her face. "Looks like they're having a good time," she commented, tilting her head toward the duo at the table. Hesitation flickered in her expression as she continued, "Is this an okay situation for you, or do you want me to step in?" David breathed deeply, weighing the gravity of her question. He recognized the well-meaning wisdom tucked within her words, the desire to mitigate the awkwardness that lingered among them. "It's complicated," he mused slowly, choosing his words with care. "I'm trying to navigate it, but there are still emotions involved." "I get it," she replied, her voice laced with empathy. "Just remember, you have support, David. You don't have to do this all alone." Gratitude washed over him, softening the barriers he had formed. "Thanks, Cassie. I'm learning to lean on others. It's a work in progress." As they spoke, a sudden commotion erupted from the direction of Emily and Jenna, peeling their attention back toward the laughter. David felt frozen, pulse quickening when he heard Jenna's laughter cut through the air, followed by a tightening of Emily's smile. Something felt off. Curiosity and concern tugged at him as he turned to see Emily bending down, wrestling playfully with a pile of leaves Jenna had raked together moments before. "Let's see if we can create the biggest leaf pile ever," Emily encouraged, her enthusiasm palpable. Many moms and dads around them laughed at the sight, children gleefully prancing forward to join the fun. Yet David's heart raced, not just with hesitation, but with fragments of guilt and confusion, as he assessed how much emotional latitude he should grant Emily. He remembered their past, the whispers of betrayal that still echoed in his mind. Caution began to seep back into his thoughts like a dark ink smudging a canvas. Watching Jenna giggle as she tossed leaves into the air circled him in a strange dichotomy. Joy, punctuated with cautious worry, reminded him of how quickly the delicate balance he'd worked to maintain could edge toward chaos. A flash of intuitive knowing struck him at that moment. He could not shield Jenna and Ryan from every hurt, nor could he micromanage their relationships with Emily. Doing so would not only stifle their joy, but might also reinforce fears that vulnerability led to pain. And so, he steeled his heart, choosing instead to provide a supportive framework while emboldening his children to reach out freely. If Jenna found joy in these moments, even while grappling with the shadows of her mother's past, David would stand by her side, guiding, but never forcefully directing, their course moving forward. As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, David joined the fray, arms wide open to envelop both his children and whatever momentary peace they could harness in the face of previous turmoil. Each laugh they shared outweighed that uncertainty, each joyful cheer and affirmation that they could reclaim their narrative. That was what he could offer, not just protection, but transparency, a steadfastness rooted in their burgeoning connection. David recognized the faultiness of adhering to burdens tied only to past betrayals. Together, they were embarking on a new adventure, crafting a life that didn't shy away from imperfections, but warmly embraced the potential rooted in love and understanding. As friends cheered and children whirled around him, David felt the weight of this journey settle into something refreshingly light. The mingling cries of laughter rang around them, mingling with the first stars beginning to puncture the dusk-laden sky. He smiled, knowing that together they could find a path illuminated by resilience and hope. Later that evening, he watched as his children's excitement pumped life into their world, the echoes of the past fading deeper into the background. David felt a resolve settle amid the easy warmth of connection. Each moment crystallized, offering reminders that no matter how complicated life became, he could foster the love and security he always envisioned. He would not allow betrayal to define them. Instead, this family would thrive on the bonds of resilience, a commitment to one another, a future built upon mutual respect, vibrant and blossoming under the infinite expanse of possibility. As the nights grew longer and autumn deepened its hold on the world outside, David found himself reflecting on the changes that had woven themselves into the fabric of his life. Each day was marked not by the specter of betrayal, as it once had been, but by the warmth of new beginnings and the laughter of his children. Laughter that had become the very pulse of his existence. Jenna and Ryan had grown even more spirited, their resilience and zest for life reminding him that humanity was resilient and hope could be rebuilt steadily, brick by brick. The backyard barbecues continued to thrive, each gathering morphing into an occasion for neighbors and friends to come together in joyful camaraderie. David poured his energy into facilitating these vibrant moments, his heart swelling with pride and contentment as he watched his children revel in the company of their peers. Yet, even amidst the vibrant colors of fall and the bustle of friendships blooming around him, a sense of cautious vigilance dunked into his newfound happiness. The intricacies of Emily's ongoing presence still lingered like a ghost, a reminder of the complexities that defined co-parenting amidst fractured relationships. The current arrangements were predictable enough. Emily would visit the children every other weekend, and David had established a routine that helped keep the interactions positive. Nonetheless, a growing unease brewed within him as he grappled with the nuances of those visits. He wanted Jenna and Ryan to have a loving relationship with their mother, but doubts always clouded his mind. Was it possible? Would their connection ever fully heal? One evening, after the kids had retreated to their rooms, David sat back on the porch, quietly sipping a cup of tea while ruminating over the events of the last few months. A rustling sound from behind him demanded his attention, and he turned to see Cassie approaching. She offered a warm smile as she settled into the adjacent porch chair. A spontaneous energy pulsated between them. "Mind if I join?" she asked, her tone light. "Not at all. I just needed a moment to breathe," David said with a weary smile, the weight of the week still clinging to him like an unwanted passenger. "You've been working really hard to make this all work, haven't you?" Cassie observed, leaning back and crossing her arms as she focused on him intently. "Juggling parenting and everything else? It can't be easy." "Thanks," he replied, appreciating her recognition. "Honestly, some days are tougher than others. I feel like I'm navigating uncharted waters." Cassie nodded knowingly. It's understandable, especially with everything that's happened. But from what I've seen, you're doing an incredible job. The kids are thriving, and that's a testament to your strength." David felt warmth radiate through him at her words. "I really appreciate that. I'm learning as I go, trying to keep things balanced when it all feels too volatile. The hardest part is making sure Jenna and Ryan feel loved despite the chaos of it all." "They're lucky to have you," Cassie remarked, a glimmer of admiration shining in her eyes. "And as they grow, it's important for them to know that their feelings are valid. Have you talked to them about their time with Emily? About how they feel?" "I've tried," David admitted, the momentous weight of honesty settling between them. "But they're still figuring it out too. Jenna keeps her emotions closer to her chest, while Ryan often falls into bouts of frustration. I just don't want to push too hard. I want them to feel some connection, but I also want to protect them from getting hurt again." Cassie considered his words for a moment, then offered a thoughtful response. Creating that space for them to share their feelings is crucial. They need to feel safe expressing themselves, no matter how confusing it is. Kids are smart. They sense things, even if they don't articulate it. David gazed into the distance, acutely aware of the truth in her statement. The complexity of his and Emily's choices had left stains on their children's hearts. Both Jenna and Ryan carried the weight of yearning and confusion, a tangled ball of emotions he was desperate to help them navigate. "I guess I'm just scared that if she keeps showing up, it might hurt them more in the long run. Like opening old wounds that could bleed still," he admitted. It was the fear that lingered just beneath his surface, the dread that came with the thought that Emily would continue to drift in and out of their lives without the consistency they needed. "But what if you give her the chance to earn the right to have those moments with them?" Cassie suggested, her voice probing yet softly encouraging. "You could establish clear boundaries and reinforce the idea that it's a privilege, not a right. Show them that love can still exist, even in complicated forms." Her words danced around his mind like a flickering flame, igniting a spark of hope. Perhaps there was room for Emily to evolve, to transform that previously shattered connection into something that could accommodate healing, especially if he took charge of leading that narrative. "I want them to know that it's possible to rebuild, but it has to be safe for them. I don't ever want to see them hurt again," he said resolutely, his heart pounding with the weight of his commitment to Jenna and Ryan. Cassie smiled warmly, noting the sincerity in his voice. "That's your strength, David. Trust your instincts. You're their foundation, and it sounds like you're ready to continue reinforcing it." In the weeks that followed, David internalized Cassie's words as he wrestled with the complexities of parenting. He wanted to encourage dialogue between his children and Emily, but also needed to ensure they were emotionally equipped to handle whatever came their way. He decided the best approach would be to continue fostering honest conversations with Jenna and Ryan, inviting them into discussions about their feelings rather than imposing his opinions. During their next family movie night, David set a lighthearted tone, selecting films where characters faced uphill battles but ultimately emerged stronger through their tangled experiences. "All right, guys, tonight we're watching The Incredibles," he announced, eager to see how the tale of family and resilience resonated with them. In the midst of the film, he took the opportunity to foster casual conversations. "You know, heroes always have to deal with challenges, right?" He posed casually, glancing toward his children. "Even when it comes to families, sometimes things can get a little complicated." Jenna and Ryan exchanged glances as if deciphering the intent behind his words. Their brows knitted together adorably, Ryan barely containing his excitement. Like how Dash practices running fast, but sometimes he gets into trouble because it's hard for him to keep some things quiet, he suggested, moments later realizing the metaphor was layered with sincerity. Exactly. And sometimes they have to work together to solve their problems, even if that seems tough at first. David encouraged, striving to keep the dialogue open. Jenna chimed in, thoughtfully processing the theme. Maybe that's what Mom's trying to do, like she's trying to build a fast track too, but isn't so great at knowing how to balance it, she mused, her tone laced with intent. Caught off guard by her insight, David smiled. That's a great observation, Jenna. And remember, balancing things is important in every family. There are ups and downs. But if everyone helps each other, we can all be strong together. The evening flowed seamlessly, paving the way for further discussions filled with their shared wisdom. As the credits rolled, each child left with new insights, one step closer to understanding, one towards healing, while replacing the memories of anguish with glimmers of hope. David felt a renewed sense of purpose through the laughter they shared. Gradually, he began to work toward allowing Emily to earn her way back into their lives on their terms. Perhaps, like the characters they had admired, she too could learn to balance her responsibilities and emotional sway by shifting toward authenticity. But the stakes remained high. It would require transparency and dependability to foster a connection worth nurturing. The next family meeting with Emily came sooner than expected. As David set the stage, uncertainty pricked at him, the weight of what lay ahead hanging in the air like mist. But he refused to wallow in doubt. This was a chance at reconstruction, a moment to advocate for the safety and well-being of his children while allowing Emily to demonstrate her commitment to change. Jenna, Ryan, we're meeting your mom for lunch this weekend. I want to make sure you both feel involved in this. So if there's anything you want me to communicate, I'm here for you, he assured them, his heart racing with the challenges that lay ahead. Their eyes lit with a mix of apprehension and excitement, eager to see how the pieces would fall into place. We can do it, Dad, Jenna responded with newfound fortitude, confidence glimmering under the previously timid facade. We'll be brave together. That affirmation warmed his heart, reinforcing his resolve. Together they would step into this unknown territory, navigating the intricacies of a stomach that quivered in anticipation. David understood that rebuilding bonds required courage, but he nestled into the knowledge that they possessed the strength to emerge anew, just like an animated family of superheroes, battling the odds with love, laughter, and determination. As the weekend drew near, he found solace knowing that this was not solely about Emily's journey, but also about his children's fortitude to reclaim their identity amidst the complexities of adult themes wrapped in the innocence of childhood. This meeting was the beginning, not just for Emily, but also for the transformative power of their family stories taking shape. It was more than just a lunch. It was a chance to nurture the narrative, sowing the seeds of compassion, patience, and understanding, with David at the helm, steadfast and unwavering, ready for whatever came next. And as he gathered the family in preparation, they stood together, united against whatever doubts or series of events unfolded, ready to embrace a complex family tapestry built from sincerity and understanding. The day of the lunch arrived, bringing with it a whirlpool of emotions that David couldn't quite pin down. As he finished ironing a clean shirt, the sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the breakfast table, now cluttered with untouched cereal bowls, awaiting the chaos of children's marching feet. He took a moment to breathe, reflecting on how far they had come since the fallout with Emily. Both Jenna and Ryan had spent the morning buzzing with a mix of excitement and apprehension, the air in the house charged with their innocent energy. David had reinforced that it was okay to feel nervous about seeing their mom, that it was a step toward carving out a new reality together. They had cultivated a relationship built not on fear, but awareness, ready to confront whatever lay ahead with newfound resilience. Jenna sat at the table, her hair tied back into a neat ponytail, fiddling with her bracelet. Dad, what if she starts acting the way she used to? Her voice trembled slightly, and David heard the underlying worry. He knelt down beside her, capturing her gaze with unwavering attention. Remember, we've been talking about this for a while. If she starts to act that way, we'll navigate it together. You can always tell me how you're feeling, okay? What's most important is that we support each other. I promise, no matter what, I'm right there with you. Jenna nodded, her face brightening with a glimmer of reassurance, while Ryan, sitting across from her, raised a triumphant fist. And we'll show her what a team looks like. David chuckled, heart swelling with pride. Exactly, champ. We'll show her our team spirit. As they piled into the car, he looked in the rearview mirror, catching Ryan's enthusiasm bubbling forth as he hummed tunes from their favorite movies, while Jenna remained quietly introspective. He felt the ignition of hope juxtaposed with the raw tension nipping at their heels, a delicate dance between apprehension and trust. They arrived at the restaurant, a casual yet inviting place where laughter and energy thrived among patrons. David walked in first, eyes scanning the cozy confines until he spotted Emily sitting at a booth near the window, her posture tense as she stirred her drink. She wore a soft, light sweater that seemed to heighten the air of vulnerability around her. At that moment, he recalled just how much Emily had relied on appearances to navigate their previous life, often using charm to disguise deeper rifts. Fighting an instinctive wave of protectiveness, David rallied his resolve. Today would be a chance at growth, not for him, but for his children. As they approached, Emily looked up, her expression morphing from uncertainty to a fragile smile. "Hey, you made it," she greeted, her voice unusually bright yet strained. "Of course, we wouldn't miss it, right, kids?" David chimed, motioning for Jenna and Ryan to step closer. Jenna offered a small wave, clearly uncertain, while Ryan was uncharacteristically quiet, absorbing the scene unfolding before him. It was a moment pregnant with unspoken words, each heartbeat reverberating with tension as they settled into the booth. The waitress arrived promptly, her bubbly demeanor injecting a touch of normalcy into the atmosphere. Orders were taken, icebreaker questions hurled back and forth, along with awkward laughter that gradually punctured the stark tension that had settled around their table. David felt the kids lean against each other, their small bodies finding comfort in proximity, an instinctive alliance as they faced Emily together. "So, how are things going for you?" Emily ventured, her eyes landing on Ryan first, and then Jenna, her voice soft yet probing. "They're going great," Ryan replied, his youthful enthusiasm flickering like a flame. "We've been practicing soccer. Dad even coached my team." David watched as Emily nodded, a smile breaking through her former nervousness. "That sounds fun, Ryan. I'm really glad you're enjoying it." The sincerity in her voice was tempered by cautious acknowledgement, and David felt a glimmer of hope spark. "And Jenna started a book club," David added, steering supportively back toward their ongoing triumphs. "Oh, wow, I've always loved reading," Emily said, genuinely interested. "What books are you reading?" Jenna shifted in her seat, visibly battling hesitation. "Just some, mysteries," she offered, her words tentative. However, the soft glimmer of excitement threaded through her expression as she continued. "Dad helps me pick them, like the one about the girl who solves disappearances. Right, the missing ones. That book was really good," David added, cherishing the proud look that slowly overcame Jenna's expression. "It sounds interesting. I'd love to hear more about it," Emily encouraged, a hint of warmth threading through her voice, attempting to connect the pieces. David's protective instincts flared within him, yet he also recognized the importance of Jenna getting the opportunity to share her newfound passions with her mother. He watched as the conversation flowed gracefully, tension easing with the accumulation of shared experiences, and he could see the children absorbing the encounter in real time. As their lunch unfolded, Emily's demeanor began to reveal a flicker of vulnerability, an intention to engage genuinely, as she leaned into the conversation. She asked questions about the kids' interests, nodding in encouragement, and he noted how easily the laughter came when the topic shifted to lighthearted quirks from school life. But then, as the food began to arrive, she turned to David, her tone shifting slightly as if probing deeper waters. You know, I've been working on improving myself. I've been talking to someone about everything that went wrong between us. I wish you both could see how much I'm trying to change. Her request for acknowledgement hung in the air, delicate yet tenacious. David steadied his breath, considering how to respond without clouding the progress they had already made. I appreciate that you're putting in the effort, Emily. It means a lot to know you're working toward those changes. He found himself treading carefully, balancing recognition with embedded caution. But I want you to understand that actions speak louder than words. The kids need to feel safe with you. Building that trust will take time. Emily absorbed his words, the softness in her eyes fading momentarily before she steadied herself. I understand, she replied, a note of sincerity echoing in her voice. I'll work hard to earn that trust. I miss being part of their lives, and I want to do it right this time. Ryan, ever perceptive, watched the exchange, sensing the gravity of the moment. He interjected, Mom, if you do come visit more, you have to be cool about it. Like, no more lying. We like it better when you're just a mom instead of trying to impress us. The sincerity in Ryan's honesty struck a chord, and a fragile silence enveloped the table. David marveled at how bravely his son vocalized their shared sentiments. He had learned lessons well. Jenna chimed in, Yeah, we want to know you for who you are, not for who you think we want you to be. Her cheeks flushed, yet bravery knitted its way through her words. David felt a swell of admiration for his children's courage in confronting the complexities of their emotions. He knew these were conversations they'd long needed, vulnerable and honest, yet wrapped in the innocent concerns of childhood. Emily's eyes glistened with a mix of surprise and realization, reflections of the past illuminated in her gaze. I promise to do better for you both. I'm grateful you're both willing to give me a chance, she responded softly, her voice laced with humility. The conversation splintered into lighter topics as lunch progressed, a foray into playful banter regarding their favorite characters from the movies they had seen together, and David, sensing the transition, felt a unique clarity wash over him. They were leaning toward healing, inching their way toward a future that allowed for both honesty and forgiveness. As dessert was served, David saw Emily leaning in closer to Jenna and Ryan, a growing bond taking root between them all. He realized the inevitability of steps forward. It wouldn't be a straight line, but a series of ebbs and flows, the dance of rebuilding trust layered with tentative hope. By the time they left the restaurant, an unmistakable shift had settled amongst them. Something deeper was forming, an acknowledgement of shared humanity, a desire to move through the discomfort and nurture the bonds they each held. David walked with Jenna and Ryan, their laughter echoing in the street as they recounted the quirky moments throughout their lunch. The loud and boisterous celebration of their day filled him with hope. It was a solid footstep into unfamiliar territory, and he recognized that while deviation thrived in complexity, fostering honesty had opened a door to the nuanced hopes of moving forward. As they headed home, David knew there would still be rough seas ahead, but armed with newfound confidence and clarity, they would navigate those waters together as a family. Through healing, growth, and collective courage, love had begun to blossom anew, defying the odds in the wake of past betrayals. Little did he know that what unfolded on that day would shift the dynamics of their family forever, sculpting a narrative grounded in resilience, and ultimately, fostering a connection that promised to bind them closer than ever before. The weeks following their lunch became a delicate tapestry, woven with threads of hope and trepidation. David noticed a subtle but significant transformation taking place within the household. Emily began to reach out more, initiating conversations with the children via text and expressing her desire to keep those lines open. Each message was a step, albeit tentative, into a realm of reparative healing. At dinner that evening, David gathered Jenna and Ryan around the table, platters of spaghetti and meatballs steaming comfortably in front of them. Amid the casual clatter of dishes, he could sense an eagerness simmering beneath the surface, fueled by curiosity about their mother's responses. "Kids, I want to talk to you about how things went after lunch with your mom," David began, balancing authority with a softness that invited openness. They looked up, eyes bright with interest. "How did you feel about it?" Ryan, always enthusiastic, quickly chimed in. "I think she's really trying. I liked how she asked about our soccer games. It felt like she cared." Jenna nodded thoughtfully, her fork pausing midair. "Yeah, I felt like she was being real. But what if she just goes back to how she was?" David felt the weight of her worries settle into his chest. "That's a valid concern, Jenna," he replied, leaning in slightly. "We've been through a lot, and trust takes time to build. But remember, you have every right to express how you're feeling. Just because someone says they'll change doesn't mean they automatically will." "Do you think she's really trying to be better?" Jenna asked, genuine curiosity lighting her expression. "I think she wants to try," David said, his gaze firm yet encouraging. "But it's up to us to see if she can maintain that and earn our trust." And that's where we all come in, working together as a family. Dinner flowed seamlessly, their conversation peppered with laughter, and the skeletons of uncertainty began to disperse, making room for vibrant discussions about upcoming soccer matches and Jenna's book club exploits, bursting with newfound confidence. As they wrapped up, a wave of warmth settled in the pit of David's stomach, a pleasant reminder of the quiet strength they shared. The next weekend saw Emily visiting once again, both children eagerly looking forward to her arrival. David had planned a small activity, hoping to foster collaboration and create an environment where they could all collectively engage without the pressures of judgment or expectations. "All right, everyone," David announced as they huddled around the dining table. "I thought we could try creating a vision board together. It's a way for us to share our dreams, our interests, whatever we hope to accomplish." Ryan's face lit up with enthusiasm, while Jenna's features creased in intrigue, her creative spirit igniting. "Like crafts?" she asked, visibly intrigued. "Exactly. We can cut out pictures from magazines, draw concepts, or write down things we really want," David encouraged, gesturing toward the array of materials laid before them. Emily arrived a bit later, weaving through the various supplies spread across the table, her face brightening upon seeing the children engaged. "What's going on here?" she asked, feigning innocence, while her gaze roamed over the colorful assortment of magazines and glitter markers. "We're making vision boards," Ryan exclaimed, his excitement spilling over. "You should join us." "Do you want to?" David asked cautiously, gauging her interest while curbing the instinctual need for vigilance. Emily's eyes softened, and for a moment David saw the glimmer of sincerity spark within her. "I'd love to," she said, taking a seat at the table next to Jenna, who handed her a pair of scissors with a shy smile. As they began cutting out images and sharing stories behind their choices, the atmosphere shifted. Emily picked out pictures of places she wanted to visit, like serene beaches and vibrant cities, and shared childhood memories of adventures she had dreamed of. Jenna, inspired by the unfolding energy, attached photos of book covers that captivated her curiosity, while Ryan showcased drawings that culminated in his dream of becoming a soccer star. "What about you, Dad?" Ryan asked mid-snip, looking up expectantly. David hesitated briefly, then reached for a magazine, flipping through its pages with a playful smile. "I'm still figuring things out," he said with a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Maybe I'll draw a picture of a superhero dad." "After all, it's a tough job, but someone has to do it!" Laughter erupted, echoing around the table. And just like that, David heard the sound he had yearned for, a genuine joy that dashed against the walls of uncertainty. Emily chuckled, the sound genuine and uplifting, and he could see how much she was enjoying being part of this moment, clearly seeking solace within the flickering bonds they were reconstructing. As the evening progressed, they filled their boards with images representative of dreams, joys, and passions. Jenna depicted a scene from her favorite book, while Ryan glued an image of an iconic soccer match he wished to attend. Emily carefully curated a vision for a healthy family, emphasizing her desire to bond and heal alongside them. David felt a rush of euphoria lift his spirits as he watched them work side by side, sharing and laughing. It was a delicate dance of renewal, a small victory that layered hope against the backdrop of insecurity from their past. Hush, what's one thing you've always wanted to achieve, Emily? Jenna asked, her curiosity innocent. Emily pondered for a moment, her brow furrowing. I want to be a better version of myself. Not just for you, but for me. I want to learn and grow. Her voice trembled, betraying vulnerability as the children absorbed her sincerity. I think you're doing great so far, Ryan piped up, and Jenna nodded fervently, their validation a balm to Emily's hesitance. David watched the exchange, feeling a swell of gratitude for those small yet significant moments. It was clear that Emily's desire to forge a better connection with her children came from a place of honesty, and while it was still a work in progress, he sensed that something meaningful was beginning to form. One evening not long after, David sat with Jenna and Ryan in the backyard, their vision boards hanging proudly on the fence like banners of possibility. The air was brisk, the stars twinkling overhead as they reflected on their time together. Dad, Jenna began, her voice tentative, do you think Mom will really keep trying? He paused, choosing his words carefully. I can't predict the future, Jenna, but what I do know is that people are capable of change. Your mom is taking steps to improve, and while it may take time, that doesn't mean she isn't trying. It's okay to be hopeful, but it's also okay to keep a little caution. Ryan leaned against David, snuggling close, seeking that familiar comfort. Do you think she'll ever get us a puppy? He asked, his innocent curiosity hanging in the air. David chuckled softly. I think that's something we'll listen to her about in the future. But it's okay to dream about those things too. Their laughter cascaded against the backdrop of the night, a delicate weave of companionship reverberating through the crisp autumn air as together they envisioned trust being rebuilt, a tapestry of experience, small victories, and relationships lest not defined solely by the past. As they settled down for the night, David knew there would still be roadblocks ahead. Trust slowly rebuilt against the looming nuances of life, but he felt a sturdy belief in their collective potential settling into him, buoying his spirit against uncertainty. Their story might be laced with challenges, but it was also forged with promise, a growth process that made space for healing, remorse, and ultimately, compassion. And perhaps, as the crisp nights of autumn melded into winter, they would forge bonds and align dreams, all grounded in a strengthened love shared amongst one another, a newfound narrative rooted in redemption. With shared memories and laughter echoing in the distance, David embraced the possibilities ahead, ready to step into whatever they would face together, equipped with renewed hope and the strength that comes from the heart of family uniting, bruised but not broken. As the weeks rolled into months, the air shifted with the arrival of winter, wrapping their small town in a frosty embrace. The holidays approached, bringing with them the promise of cold nights filled with warm family gatherings. David felt an exhilarating thrill at the thought of celebrating the season as a family unit, rekindling traditions while creating new memories. It sparked hope within him, an ember that promised to grow brighter. Jenna and Ryan had been gearing up for the holiday season, their excitement bubbling over as they anticipated the school break. Each evening, they bundled up and helped him string lights around the house, wrapping strands around the porch railing and draping them across the eaves. David loved watching them work together as a team, their laughter ringing out like a sweet carol against the backdrop of the falling snow. It was an invigorating blend of beauty, resilience, and unity. One evening, as snowflakes gently cascaded down, David and the kids gathered by the fireplace, stitching gingerbread houses together with frosting and candy. The table was a chaotic canvas of sugar and delight, remnants of their creativity strewn about like confetti. Just as Jenna began to adorn her house with colorful sprinkles, the doorbell chimed, slicing through the cozy atmosphere like a sharp breeze. Who could that be? David wondered aloud. As they opened the door, he found Emily standing on the porch, bundled up against the cold, a hesitant smile on her face. David felt the familiar tightening in his chest, a cocktail of nervousness and anticipation flaring within him. The kids leaned closer, glancing at David before turning their attention to their mother. Hey, everyone, Emily greeted, her voice wavering slightly as she stepped inside, brushing snowflakes off her coat. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Not at all. We're just making gingerbread houses," Ryan exclaimed, his enthusiasm pouring out effortlessly. Emily's eyes sparkled, a hint of genuine joy breaking through her initial trepidation. "That sounds amazing. Can I join in?" David exchanged cautious glances with Jenna, a mix of excitement and apprehension rippling through him. He understood the weight of the situation. Inviting Emily into their holiday traditions felt like another step, a leap of faith that could either fortify their bonds or test his newly wrought foundation. "Sure, we could use more hands to help with the frosting," he replied, trying to keep the atmosphere light, welcoming her without overextending his comfort. As the trio resumed their activity, they worked in tandem, laughter spilling over as they competed for the most creative designs. The festive spirit swirled in the air, punctuated with playful banter and friendly competition as they decorated each house with vibrant candies and icing. David found himself marveling at Emily's evident delight. She immersed herself fully, chatting animatedly with the kids as they exchanged stories of past holidays, buoyed by nostalgia and laughter. "Do you remember the Christmas we made reindeer cookies?" Emily asked, her smile warming the tension that had enveloped them for so long. The children burst into a chorus of giggles as they shared fragmented memories together, each fostering the organic spark of togetherness. Jenna, ever thoughtful, piped up, "You made the reindeer's noses all red with candy." "Yes, and I think we left some outside for Santa," Ryan added, laughter bursting from him like confetti, moments that splintered their fears. David observed as Emily's face softened, the burden of her past hang-ups momentarily lifting. She seemed to settle into this new dynamic, slowly reacclimating not just to their presence, but to the warmth of family. He felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, the possibility that they could redefine these relationships, morphing pain into moments filled with love. As the evening continued and the houses came alive with color, the sentiment shifted at the table from anxious anticipation to pure joy. The atmosphere surrounding them mingled with the scent of cinnamon and frosting, wrapping them in a cocoon of familial warmth. Then, as they abandoned the decor and sat down to admire their creations, a disarray of colorful candy and gingerbread, they felt the warmth of a small victory hanging in the air. "This is the best," Ryan enthused, beaming as he lifted his house, adorned with syrupy awnings and gummy bears. "You should enter it in the school competition," Jenna chimed in, her eyes alight with creativity. "Oh, we could totally win." "Or we could just enjoy it for what it is," David interjected, grinning. "The real victory is right here, together." He glanced at Emily, who was laughing at their antics, the guarded demeanor peeling away with every passing moment. The genuine connection began to feel palpable as they all reveled in their festive spirit. Kindness unfurled deeper than any frost outside. It began to root itself amidst shared memories. David knew life remained imperfect, yet this moment felt like a turning point, a realization that genuine effort could bear fruit. As the evening drew to a close, David could feel the cozy atmosphere wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Following their errant creations of icing and candy, they gathered in the living room with mugs of hot cocoa, their hearts light and full. Then, as Jenna and Ryan settled down on the sofa, they turned their attention to Emily, who sat nearby. "Hey, Mom," Jenna started tentatively. "Do you think you could come with us to see the Christmas lights tomorrow night?" The room grew quiet as David listened intently, anxiety weaving through him again. This was another moment steeped in vulnerability, where the children's desires hinged on genuine connection. He wanted them to experience the joy of openness, yet he felt the weight of uncertainty again. Emily looked at Jenna, her expression sincere. "I'd love to. It sounds like so much fun," she replied, a genuine smile illuminating her face. David felt a rush of relief mingled with hope. He could see how this invitation buoyed the kids' spirits, inspiring newfound momentum in the fragile reconstruction of their family unit. They would go together. The spark of imagination had taken root, and if they kept fostering that spirit of togetherness, maybe, just maybe, they could create a lasting connection. The following evening, the family bundled up and stepped outside into the crisp, frosty air. The world around them transformed into a glimmering winter wonderland. Lights twinkled like stars overhead, reflecting off the pristine blanket of snow that adorned the pavement. Excitement bubbled from the kids. They darted ahead, their laughter echoing through the chilly night. David and Emily walked at a steady pace behind them, soaking in the scene. David could feel Emily's head shift slightly as she turned to him, her voice soft but audible above the sound of distant carols. "Thank you for inviting me tonight. It means a lot. To be included, I really appreciate it. I just want the kids to experience the warmth of family. And it's important that they see you too," David replied, their eyes locking for a moment, an unspoken acknowledgement hovering in the space between them. As they approached the nearby park, the festivities unfolded, a sea of light illuminating every corner. Families gathered to admire the displays that adorned the large trees, laughter drifting through the chilled air like a soft lullaby. Ryan and Jenna dashed ahead, their excitement palpable, tugging at their parents' hands and lightening their spirits. "Look over there," Jenna shouted, pointing toward a vividly illuminated display featuring cheerful holiday figures, creating an atmosphere that felt electric and alive. Lights danced in rhythmic patterns, casting soft shadows amidst the joy. "Let's take a family picture," Ryan suggested, his face glowing with enthusiasm. "One with Mom, Dad, and us." As David felt the surge of emotion warm his heart, he quickly gathered everyone behind a beautifully decorated tree, the camera positioned perfectly to capture the moment. Emily stood beside David, and as the children huddled close, he squeezed each of their shoulders gently. Each interaction whispered of promise and laughter. "Say, family," David called out, urging the kids to strike goofy poses, their goofy laughter resonating within the tranquility of the wintry night. "Family," they shouted, a chorus of joyful chaos erupting behind the camera as the flash erupted, relieving any remnants of dread that had once loomed. In that moment, with the chill of winter clinging to their cheeks and hearts aligned, David felt a strong sense of unity. They were on their path to rebuilding amidst the gnarled branches of uncertainty, forging strength anew. Each little act, each laugh, each spark of connection began to ebb the boundaries and initiate healing. The path forward wouldn't be without challenges, but as David embraced the warmth of the moment, he recognized how much could be built through patience and love. Each family picture taken that night resolved into a metaphor, the promise of good things to come, paired with hope illuminating their lives, guiding them into a future brighter than they could yet imagine. They were crafting their own narrative, reshaping the textures of connection into something remarkably beautiful, rooted in trust, laughter, and the steadfast love that linked them as family. And so, in the chill of winter, amidst the twinkling lights, he saw the potential of their new beginning unfurling before them, the delicate journey where the warmth of love could flourish, despite the challenges bonded to each step they took.